Hi guys, lesson for today is lesson 2 on chapter 25 macroeconomic aims of the government. So the previous lesson we did discuss about the aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So in this lesson we're going to discuss about the macroeconomic aims of a government. There are about 4 important macroeconomic aims about the government that you have to know. So the first aim is the economic growth, achieving economic growth in a country. Secondly, price stability. The third thing here is the full employment or low unemployment. The fourth aim is the surplus in the balance of payment. Okay, the surplus in the balance of payment. So in this chapter, we mainly going to discuss about the first aim on the economic growth by applying production possibility curve as well as the ADAS framework. So instruction for students, you have to, as usual, you have to read, watch and do. Read attached notes and your economic cost book, page 220 and 221 only, 2 pages only. Watch my video presentation, and do these questions given to you. Learning objectives. By end of this lesson, you should be able to describe the four government macroeconomic aims, which are economic growth, full employment, price stability, and surplus in balance of payments. All right. So I repeat, achieving economic growth is the first aim of the government, macroeconomic aim of the government. The second macroeconomic aim of the government is the achieving price stability. All right. The third macroeconomic aim of the government is achieving full employment, meaning to say 95% employment in the labor force. The fourth macroeconomic aim will be the surplus or balanced balance of payment, achieving balanced balance of payment, right? So that is the first thing that you have to know. Secondly, you should be able to distinguish between actual economic growth and potential economic growth. In this chapter, we are mainly going to look at these two concepts, which is on the actual economic growth and the potential economic growth. For your information, actual economic growth is a short-term or short-run phenomenon, whereas the potential economic growth is a long-run or long-term phenomenon. Okay, this one is very important. The idea which is short-term, which is long-term, all that you must be very clear. We should be able to remember this. The third aim or third objective is what? You should be able to explain the different shapes of aggregate supply and how different shapes of aggregate supply affects the level of employment in a country. Okay, so meaning to say aggregate supply can be vertical, aggregate supply can be horizontal, okay, aggregate supply can be upward sloping. 3 different shapes we're going to discuss in this lesson. So introduction, the 4 main aim of the government can be summarized as follows, as I told you earlier. Okay, so first is what? The first macroeconomic aim is the economic growth. All right. Second aim is the price stability. The third aim is the full employment. The fourth aim is what? Achieving balance of payment stability. Okay, or a surplus, achieving a positive value in the balance of payment, or at least a balanced balance of payment. Achieving what? A balanced balance of payment, or to achieve balance of payment stability. So the fourth objective, the chapter for the fourth objective, you will learn in section 6, the last chapter of section 6, which is the chapter 36. So for now, you no need to worry about the idea of balance of payments. For now, you must know we're going to work on the first 3 macroeconomic aims, which is the economic growth, price stability, and full employment. So let me give you some brief description about each of the macroeconomic aim. All right, the first thing is what achieving economic growth, or the first aim is what economic growth. So the term economic growth, it means increase. All right, economic means, the term growth means increase. Growth in something means increase in something. Growth means increase. Okay, economic growth means increase in income. Okay, increase in income. All right, it means increase in what? Output of a country. The term economic growth usually refers to an increase in the income of a country. So an income of a country means usually we use the indicator of what? GDP. In last lesson we discussed about the GDP, the real GDP. So you can say, if anyone asks you to define economic growth means is what? Brief description. The idea here is an increase in the aggregate output, or an increase in the real GDP of a country. That will be the description for the economic growth. Secondly, we look at the price stability. Okay, when we talk about the price stability means we don't want a hike in the price. We don't want a price increase. Price means not one particular price. Prices of all the goods and services in a country. Prices of what? All the goods and services in a country. We don't want an increase in the prices. We don't want a hike in the prices of goods and services in a country. Okay, we don't want higher cost of living. Okay, we don't want higher cost of production. Okay, at the same time, we don't want a decrease in the prices of the goods and services in a country, because because this may affect the sustainability of companies. Okay, when the prices of goods and services keep falling, what will happen? Companies, they cannot survive, they cannot sustain, they may make losses, and they cannot make profits. They may make losses, and they may shut down. We don't want price to decrease. If price decrease, will lead to deflation. To hike in the price or increase in the price can lead to inflation. We don't want inflation, we don't want deflation. Okay, so we want to achieve price stability. So the government want to achieve the price stability. So that will be the second main government's macroeconomic aim, right? It's what? Price stability. Okay, it means a low and stable rate of inflation in the general price level. The fourth point here is the full employment. Okay, we want to achieve the government wants to achieve full employment. Okay, a high and stable level of employment with a low level of unemployment, meaning to say about 95% of the workers, okay, or the laborers in the labor force should be employed, or more than 95% should be employed in order to achieve a full employment. Okay, more than 95% or more than 98% will be better, because of the frictional unemployment, okay, which caused by the job searching and job switching. All right, so full employment means we want at least 95% of the workers should be working or employed in the labor force. Okay, we will do on the second objective and third objective in the lesson 3 of this chapter. Okay, and the fourth macroeconomic objective is what? Achieving stability of what? Balance of payment. We will be doing this chapter in section 6, last chapter of what? Section 6. Now we are at section 4. So in this this particular chapter, which is chapter 25, all right, the lesson number 2, we're going to mainly focus on the economic growth only, right? So we're going to discuss about the two different types of what? Economic growth, which is one is the actual economic growth, the other one is what? Potential economic growth. Actual versus potential economic growth. So let me give you the definition for economic growth before we go into the actual versus the potential economic growth discussion on the actual versus potential economic growth. So economic growth refers to what? An increase in what? Income. Income meaning to say the total output of goods and services in a country over a period of time or over a certain period of time. Okay, so therefore people in the country can enjoy more goods and services assuming prices are stable. Alright, even we have a higher economic growth, but if the price is not stable, therefore people cannot enjoy more goods and services. So with the price stability together with the economic growth, people can enjoy more goods and services. This will increase the people's standards of living. Okay, so the main aim of the government is to achieve higher living standard in a country. So that will be the ultimate aim. Achieving the higher living standard will be the ultimate aim. So in order to reach the ultimate aim of highest living standard or increase in the people's welfare, the government targeting in achieving economic growth, price stability, full employment, and stability in the balance of payment. Alright, so now let's move into the actual versus potential economic growth. So economic growth can be distinguished between actual and potential economic growth, right? So this can be shown using two economic tools that we have studied earlier, which is one is using the production prosperity curve or production prosperity frontier. Secondly, we can also use the ADAS analysis, aggregate demand, aggregate supply analysis, or ADAS framework, to exhibit or to show the actual and potential economic growth. So you bear in your mind, actual means in the actual economic growth will take place in the short run, whereas the potential economic growth will take place in the long run. So the first part here is the actual economic growth. Actual economic growth suggests, it means an increase in the same thing. It is also an economic growth. Okay, so if you know how to define economic growth, you will automatically know how to define the actual economic growth. So just by adding the term short run, okay, we need to say we're going to define economic growth. Economic growth refers to an increase in the national output or total output of a country. Okay, just add on the term short run, it will become the actual economic growth. So here the actual economic growth suggests an increase in the total output in the short run, whereby the economy maintains current productive capacity, okay, with a constant amount of the resources and state of technology. Short run means in the short run there will not be an increase in the economic resources and state of technology. Okay, there is no technological improvement, and also the amount or the level of the economic resources, there's no changes in the resources and technology, right? So now for example, GDP in the year 2018, let's say GDP in 2018 is 200 billion, and the next year GDP of 2019 is 210 billion. So these numbers, this figure shows that GDP increases by how much? By 10 billion only. Okay, it shows increase in total output, okay, about 10 billion in the short term. Okay, this concept can be illustrated using the concept of the production prosperity curve, which you studied in the section 1. So if you take a look at the production prosperity curve, the y-axis represented by the clothing, x-axis represented by the food, right? So if you look at the production prosperity curve here, okay, there's no shift in the PPC. Okay, there is no outward shift in the PPC, and there's only a movement movements of points, okay, within the PPC, okay, and you only have one PPC here. It means there's no shift here, right? So it means the resources are constant. There is no increase in the economic resources at the current period in the short run. Okay, that is the first thing that you should be able to understand, right? By looking at the diagram itself, you should be able to know that okay, there is no increase in the economic resources because we only have one PPC there, one line over there, one line to exhibit the PPC, right? Number two, there is no technological progress or there's no improvement in the technology because there's only one single line of what PPC. Okay, so I repeat, PPC means constant state of technological level as well as what constant amount of economic resources, and there is some growth. Okay, there is a certain level of growth. Okay, like for example, there's a movement. How we can know that? By looking at the diagram here. You can see there's a movement in what? In points from point A to point B. For instance, the movement from point A to point B, we can see there is a increase in the production of what? Both goods of clothing and food. Okay, last time probably the country were producing at the point A, which is about 100 units of food and 200 units of clothes. Now, using the same amount of resources, now the country can produce little bit more. Okay, all right, they can, by using the existing technological level and by using the existing amount of resources, they can produce little bit more, where you can see, okay, now at point B, the point has increased to move to from point A to point B. Now at the point B, you can see that now the country can produce 250 units of food and 250 units of clothes by utilizing the same amount of resources, the same level of technology. Okay, so let's take a look at the potential economic growth. So the difference between potential economic growth and actual economic growth is actual economic growth will happen in the short run. Actual economic growth means achieving an increase in the national output in the short run with constant amount of economic resources with constant level of what? Technological or technology state. Okay, so whereas the potential economic growth is a long run phenomenon where economy may experience the increase or improvement in the quantity and the quality of economic resources. Number two, we can see there is a technological improvement. With this, there will be a shift in the PPC to the right, or there will be an outward shift of PPC from PPC 1 to PPC 2. The entire production possibility curve will be outward shifting. Right? So why there will be an outward shift of PPC is because of what? Two factors. Is because of the increase in the quantity and the quality of what? Existing economic resources. Number two, improvement in the technology level. So this phenomena, specific phenomena, this particular phenomena is what we call as the potential economic growth. So last time in section 1, we probably would have learned about the economic growth, just generally about the economic growth. Now, you should be able to specifically differentiate two different types of economic growth. One is the actual and the potential. The other one is the potential economic growth. So this is an example of what? An example of potential economic growth, where the rightward shift of PPC from R0 T0 to R1 T1. Okay, right? So this is what described as the potential economic growth. So by end of this lesson, you should be able to sketch or draw, okay, actual economic growth and potential economic growth. With your sketch or with your drawing, you should be able to explain the difference between the actual and also the potential economic growth. So how to remember, how to summarize it is very simple. What are the difference between actual versus the potential economic growth? It's very simple here. Time period, okay, actual economic growth is a short run phenomenon. It's a short run phenomenon. Or we can say AEG and PEG. AEG and PEG. AEG is the actual economic growth. PEG is the potential economic growth. So actual economic growth is a short run phenomenon, whereas the potential economic growth is a long run phenomenon. Okay, or we can say actual economic growth will happen in the short run, whereas the potential economic growth will happen in the long run. Simple as that. Secondly, actual economic growth involves of movement within the boundary of PPC. It means it will happen within the maximum production level of a country. It will never go beyond the boundary. This will never take place. It's always within the boundary of the PPC, whereas the potential economic growth is always going beyond the PPC, or rightward shift or outward shift of the PPC. The third point here is the productive capacity, okay, such as the level of technology and also the amount of economic resources. Is there any increase in the quantity and the quality of economic resources or not? In AEG, in actual economic growth, there's no increase or there is no increase in the quantity and the quality of the economic resources. Okay, that means the economic growth has been achieved using existing economic resources or without any increase in the productive capacity. Okay, the productive capacity means this is what we say, two productive capacity. One is the resources, the other one is the technology. Next is if you look at the potential economic growth, both things have been increased. Both productive capacity has increased, where there is an increase in the quantity and the quality of the economic resources. The second thing is there is an improvement in the technology, right? Okay, so this will be the summary. Next, okay, in this section I'm going to discuss about three different shapes of the aggregate supply. Aggregate supply can be what? Can be flat curve or horizontal. So any line is horizontal, it means perfectly elastic. Every time you saw a horizontal line, you just conclude it is perfectly elastic. Okay, the elasticity is what? Perfectly elastic. We may also have a vertical line of AS. We got three cases of what? AS as a horizontal line, AS as a vertical line, AS as a upward sloping line. Okay, upward sloping line, your simple supply line. The supply line is what? Upward sloping from your left to right. Alright, okay, there are three cases. Let me go with you one by one. The first case here is the horizontal line of the AS, which is known as the perfectly elastic AS curve. So if you look at the perfectly elastic AS curve, okay, so what is happening to the perfectly elastic? By looking at the diagram here, you can know the perfectly elastic AS curve means there's no increase in the price. The price is constant. Okay, the y-axis represented by the price, the x-axis represented by the national income or the real GDP. So what is happening here? It means there's no increase in the price of goods and prices of goods and services. However, there is some increase in the output level. Okay, price is what? Is still constant at P. Alright, so this shows a case of the actual economic growth. Okay, so let's go on this. So the economy has what? Continuing on the same thing, same diagram. So the perfect elastic or horizontal AS curve suggests that the economy has what? Significant amount of unemployed resources. because it operates so far beyond the full employment level. Okay, the full employment means the AS must be vertical. We don't have the vertical here. Okay, this is only one segment of the entire AS curve. Right? Okay, so it means the production can be easily increased without any increase in the input. Okay, so without any increase in the input. Without any increase in the input means the economic resources is constant. Alright? So as such, the cost of production does not rise because we are not incurring new expenses. Okay, we are just producing by using the same amount of resources and technology state. Okay, therefore there's no extra cost. Hence, the prices of products and services is constant. Therefore, the expansion of output can be managed by the remaining price. Okay, this is a case of what? This is a case of actual economic growth. Right? So how we can use this as an actual economic growth by incorporating what? Incorporating the aggregate demand together with the aggregate supply. So you can see there is an equilibrium point here. So by looking at the same diagram, what I did is I just added the AD. Okay, I just convert the diagram into the ADAS analysis or ADAS framework. It's just a simple demand and supply, but your supply curve is what? Is a horizontal line. Okay, but this is not a supply for a particular product. This is a supply for the entire country. Okay, so you can see the equilibrium point is what? Is at point A. At the price level constant P, and the output level is 200. So let's say there's an increase in the aggregate demand. Therefore, the aggregate demand curve shift to the right from AD0 to AD1. So now the country has achieved a new equilibrium point at point B when the AD1 cuts the AS. Right? At the point B, you can see the price is what? Is remain constant, but the output has increased from Y0 to Y1 or from 200 to 210 units. Billion dollars, for example. Alright. So this describes actually the price constant, but there is an increase in the output. It means there is an economic growth in the country. Okay, how much? Okay, about 10 billion increase in the economic growth. Right, in the short run operation. Okay, and the AS curve didn't change. Okay, so you can see there's a actual economic growth because this is a short run phenomenon. Okay, because we are using AS and AD framework. This is the AS in the short run. Okay, AS also can be divided into short run and long run. AS vertical is what? Is long run. Aggregate supply in the long run is what? Is vertical. Aggregate supply in the short run is what? Horizontal line. Okay, so this is an application of actual economic growth in the ADAS framework. Okay, in the ADAS framework. So let's look at the case of the vertical line or perfectly inelastic AS. Okay, the other extreme case is what? Is vertical or perfectly inelastic of AS. So that means, in other words, I can say supply curve, the aggregate supply curve, we have few shapes. Okay, the first type of AS is what? Is vertical. The second type of AS is the horizontal. Sorry, the first type of AS is the horizontal line. The second type of the AS curve is what? Is vertical line. So the vertical line, which you can see, this is a long run AS curve. Okay, aggregate supply in the long run. You can see the price is what? Is P0 at point A. Alright, and the quantity at point A is YF. So YF means output level at the full employment. That means the country already achieved the full employment. It means all the workers in the country are fully employed. There's no more workers. That means the country cannot produce beyond this line. So earlier, the price constant, however, you can see some increase in the output. But now the output, they cannot increase the output already. The country already achieved the maximum amount of output level by employing all the labours. There's no more extra labours available to work, to be employed, to increase the productivity. So means output at the full employment level, or YF. Right? So at this point, you can see what will happen is the price will increase because the supply is constant. If there is a demand here, if the demand for goods and services keep rising, so what will happen? The price also will increase because the supply is constant. In this case, is what? Supply is constant. So assume the economy operates at point A of the initial stage with the national output of YF at the price of P0. The vertical curve of the AS labeled at YF means what? It shows the full employment of resources. Therefore, there are no more unemployed economic resources. And the YF is the maximum GDP and output. Cannot be increased anymore at the current amount of resources and what? Technology state. So now I'm incorporating the AD with the constant AS. With the vertical AS. So if you take a look at this, so what happened when the AD is AD0? We can see there's an equilibrium point achieved at the point A when the P is P0 and output is the YF. When there is an increase in the aggregate demand, the aggregate demand will shift upwards, a bit rightwards, upwards. You can say upward or still rightward, little bit slightly rightwards. But the equilibrium point will still establish at what? At the same output level because there's no more resources to produce beyond the YF. Alright? So what is happening? The demand is greater, but the supply is constant. So the price increases from P0 to P1. Okay, so this is the long run phenomenon of the AS. Alright, so therefore an increase in AD can be shown as follows. Okay, increase in AD from AD0 to AD1 means the price level rises from P0 to P1, causing inflation. Okay, this is an example of inflation is happening. There's no more price stability over there. There's an increase in the prices of goods and services because this one we're talking about ADAS. The y-axis is represents the general price level of a country. Right? So since the aggregate demand is greater than the aggregate supply, since the AS is constant, so price will increase, this causing an inflation, an inflationary pressure in the economy. Okay, because of what? Price increase from P0 to P1. So this diagram, so don't need to be panicked by looking at this diagram. This diagram looks complicated, but actually this is how an AS curve will look like. This is exactly how the AS curve will look like. Okay, so if you take a look at this AS curve, you can see we got three segments of AS curve. We can say AS curve perfectly elastic in the segment 1, perfectly elastic or a horizontal line in the segment 1. AS from the segment 2 shows an upward sloping, a simple upward sloping. Okay, AS curve. All right, AS segment 3 is a long run. Is a long run or vertical line of the AS, which is perfectly inelastic. So we got three different state of the AS curve, which is transition from the perfectly elastic to perfectly inelastic as the output increases. So we can break this into what? Three different segments. Okay, to give you better understanding. But if somebody asks you to draw an AS curve, this is how you have to draw an AS curve. Okay, so the idea here is by combining all three lines of AS that we have discussed earlier. Okay, this is how the diagram will look like. So if you look at the vertical or perfectly elastic AS curve, based on the diagram, the unique shape of AS can be analyzed as segment 1, segment 2 and segment 3. Segment 1 shows the short run situation, meaning to say in the segment 1 is a horizontal line. Horizontal line shows a short run, or in the short term phenomenon, okay, of AS, right? So in the short run, the AS is a horizontal line or a flat curve. It means the country operates under full employment, within or below the full employment level. That means we still have more resources to be employed. Okay, therefore the output will change, but the price is still constant. Okay, whatever demand, the country can cater for the demand. The country can supply whatever demand in the country. Okay, the segment 2, right? The country is moving closer to the full employment. The transition part segment, changing from perfectly elastic to state, from perfectly elastic state to perfectly inelastic state, right? Okay, so it is a normal supply curve, upward sloping supply curve, where the demand is changing from perfectly elastic to more elastic, right? Is more elastic, okay, or it's moving to from the perfectly elastic to elastic. That means the level of elasticity is reducing, and it is changing to upward sloping supply curve, upward sloping supply curve. Okay, the segment 3, the vertical portion of the AS. Okay, it means the AS is vertical or perfectly inelastic, where the country has achieved the full employment. That means all economic resources in the country has been fully used. That is the maximum capacity of the country to produce the highest AS. After this, the AS can't be increased for now. Okay, so the prices will rise as whereas the output is constant. So in reality, this is how the AS curve will look like. Okay, the curve we will have the perfect before the point Y. Okay, you can see the point Y. So before the point Y, we can see a horizontal line of the aggregate supply curve. Okay, after the point Y, you can see the supply curve is going upwards. Okay, going upwards. All right, upwards. So the AS0 to AS1. Okay, so this diagram shows that beyond point A, beyond point A, or the beyond output level of YF, the country can produce, right? Can produce. Okay, if there is an increase in the economic resources, or there is a technological progress. So meaning to say, this diagram is the same as the diagram that we have discussed. Meaning to say here, the AS straight line, vertical line of the AS, that means the country already achieved the maximum output level. Even this AF can be shifted to little bit to the right hand side. Okay, a little bit to the right hand side if there is an increase in the economic resources. Okay, as well as if there is an increase in the technological state. Right, this is a case phenomena of where the aggregate supply shifting to the rightwards or moving slightly to the rightwards is because of the increase in the productive capacity of the country. This implies a long run situation whereby the country's productive capacity has increased. Okay, thus denoting an increase in the potential economic growth as well. So this is a case of a potential economic growth. So actual economic growth will take place when the AS is perfectly elastic. That means the AS will not shift, only the AD will shift. Whereas if the AS shift, it means it shows the potential economic growth. Alright, So that's all for the lesson. So this is homework for you to do complete. So please try to complete the structured questions here. The deadline for this homework is 15 May 2020. Thank you. That's all for today. See you in the next lesson.